with me as we cook for a birthday party for a client. I had already made the chapatis earlier the day, and now this is early morning, going with an Uber to the client, and I made it on time. And she was a good client. She had already bought everything that I needed for the day, and had even started preparing the mashed potatoes for me, and she put them on the fire. So I washed my hands and I was ready to start, and I checked on the mashed potatoes the way she liked them, and in a few minutes they were ready. I made the onions for them to add on the mashed potatoes. As I was multitasking, I also did and washed the chickens and put them on the pressure cooker. But I didn't know that this chicken was not kienyeji as she had said. It was half kienyeji and half broiler. And I went back to my mashed potatoes and started mashing my potatoes. Here you really need some good energy, and you need to have planned yourself well. And I added the cooked onions that I had done on the side as you saw earlier, and the potatoes were done well. I was mashing them, and I also added milk to make my potatoes taste better and to make them soft for a long time. And it turned out well, and I covered them with the cling film and a foil before time for serving had come. So I went back and started preparing my pilau on the fire, and my meat had already boiled for pilau. So I went in and heat some oil and added my many onions. At least I had many things that I had prepared on time and was preparing. So after the chicken was cooked, I put my meat on the pressure cooker, my meat for the stew, and gave it some few minutes to boil as I was cooking my pilau on the other side, as you can see. So in some few minutes, my onions had already been golden brown, so I added my meat, some water and salt, and allowed my meat to mix together with the onions. And I also went in with my spices for the pilau. So after that, I checked on my chicken after it had already boiled for some time on the pressure cooker. So I wanted to remove some oil from the chicken, so not to have a lot of oil as I fried it. So this is back to my pilau, and as you can see, it's going on well. So after adding my spices, I added in my rice and mixed it well before I went in with the water. This was the meat cooking on the pressure cooker. As I was multitasking in this, as you do this, you have to multitask and make sure everything is cooking on well. As you can see, there's some oil that came out from the chicken, so I had to remove my chicken. But as you can see, my chicken had somehow already cooked, but it's because I didn't know that it was full kienyeji. It was not full kienyeji, but everything turned out well. Look at our rice after we added water. So at this point, I turned my rice so that the oil and the water that is up to go down for it to dry well, and I turned it well, and you can see this rice was very good. It was a 2 kg pilau, and it had turned out really good. It had met my expectations just as I wanted. So I garnished with some dania on top before I covered it, and it was ready to be eaten. Now we go back to my sufuria to do our beef stew that had a bit of vegetables. So that is my onion that I'm adding, and I will not cook it so much. It was turned a bit of golden brown on some side, and some side was not turned. So I added my ginger and my garlic to it and stirred it very well. As I stirred it very well, my beef had already boiled and it was looking very nice. The pressure cooker really came in handy, and the beef had boiled very well. So I put the beef and some bit of broth to allow the beef and the dania and the onions to cook very well. So this is our chicken. After some few minutes, it was already cooked, and it looked very delicious, as much as it wasn't broiler, but it turned out well. Now I just added some green capsicum. As I was not stirring it with my mwiko, I used my hand to stir so that the chickens wouldn't break. I added in some tomato, some blended ones, and as you can see, the chicken was really cooked. It somehow overcooked a bit, but it turned out very nice and tasty. So that's me stirring over there our chicken for the tomatoes to go down and cook. So we'll go back to our beef stew after some few minutes of adding our broth and covering it. The broth had already dried, and the meat had incorporated well with the onions and the garlic, and the color had even changed. So I added a soy sauce that is light. I worked with what I had. Look at that meat, and we hadn't even put so much. So this is our soy sauce and our meat, and some spices that I added, and look at how it turned out so well. This looks nice. So I decided to peel my potatoes into the wedges style for my beef stew to look a bit different, and I added them before adding other vegetables to allow the potatoes to cook a bit with the meat and the steam. I went in with my tomato paste before adding the blended tomatoes. Tomato paste really comes in handy when it comes to stew making. So I mixed the stew, and as you can see, everything was going on so well. Everything turned out very, very well. So that is me mixing the stew, the potatoes together with the meat. Look at how the meat looks. At this point, it would have been ready to eat, but we move according to our customer's desire, according to our client's desire. And she wanted a stew that had a bit of vegetables. So we move on and give our clients the best. So at this point, I added in some salt on our stew. Enough salt so that I don't need to add salt on the food. I just put enough, not too much, not too little. And then at this point, you keep mixing for my food not to get burnt. Went in now with the blended tomatoes, a lot of blended tomatoes that had a bit of other things in the tomatoes, and then I allowed the tomato to cook first before going in with my broth. So let's go back to our ready chicken. I added onions a bit on top and some dhania for garnishing, and our chicken was ready. So let's pour it onto our hot pot, and yay, it had turned out so well and tasty. Apart from it being not kienyeji, full kienyeji, but it was good. Now this is our tomato. You see the oil and the tomato have separated, meaning that the tomato is cooking well, and it has cooked well. Now we go in with our minji because this is what she wanted, a vegetable stew. Because of the guests that she was having, she preferred this, and it turned out really, really, really nice. So let's go in with our broth, and I also added some cornstarch to that stew to make it a bit heavy. So that's our broth and cornstarch, and now covered it to let it boil. Now this was the final pilau. This is how it turned out after serving it on the hot pot, and it was ready to be served. Our stew here, I added other vegetables like carrots, capsicums, and now the dhania, and the stew was ready. And she requested a stew that had the soup. I went in with the fruits now, and I had someone help me prepare the fruits. And look at how the stew turned. The potatoes were still intact, but cooked, and everything had mixed on so well. Look at that stew. Now I covered everything and waited for the time to be served and set the tables. We did the cabbage. I fried the cabbage using some vegetables, and it also turned out tasty.